By the time Brahms was 40, he'd seen large volumes of chamber, piano and vocal works through to publication. But Brahms had not yet released a string quartet or a symphony, and these were two major forms of the classical era, an era that Brahms had so adored. When Brahms's publisher pressed him for string quartets in 1869, the highly self-critical composer responded with, "I am sorry, but I must ask you to be patient. I realise more and more how difficult it is to master virtuoso technique when one is not especially adapted for it. It took Mozart a whole lot of trouble to compose 6 lovely quartets that he dedicated to Haydn. So I will try my hardest to turn out a couple fairly well done. They shall not fail you, but if I were a publisher, I should not be in such a hurry." As much as Brahms had looked up to Haydn, Mozart, and other Viennese masters, it was Beethoven that cast the longest shadow, particularly in the genres of the symphony and string quartet. When we again look at the chamber works that Brahms had published to this point, the string sextets, the piano quartets, the piano quintet, these were all combinations in which he could avoid direct comparison with Beethoven. However, when it came to the genres of the string quartet and symphony, comparison would have been inevitable. Brahms had destroyed sketches of some 20 quartets before he consented to publish the 2 that made up his Opus 51. It took him up to 21 years to produce his first symphony. The pressure of that expectation must have been almost unbearable. Brahms himself was to have said, "You have no idea how it feels to hear behind you the footsteps of a giant like Beethoven." The first quartet and the first symphony share the key of C minor, as well as some musical ideas. Now, C minor was a key that Beethoven had reserved for his boldly dramatic works. Here we might think of the Fifth Symphony or the Pathetique Sonata. For Brahms, it seems to have been a key of striving, of energy, or as the writer Paul Griffith says of the rising figures in the first movement, a sense of ambition. The second movement, Romance, is by contrast spacious. The theme gives the impression of shorter phrases, allowing the movement to breathe more naturally. The opening, at least to my ears, is reminiscent of the second movement of Beethoven's Violin Concerto. In the third movement, which bears the performance direction very moderately and comfortably, Brahms steps away from Beethoven, who tended to favour the lively, more animated form of the scherzo and trio in his third movements. Then in the finale, Brahms returns to the rising, ambitious drama of his first movement, even using similar rhythmic and melodic ideas. Again, this would not have been by chance. Brahms's desire for structural unity, something in which Beethoven achieved mastery, would have been the model. So where did Brahms go from here? By 1876, he had not only published another string quartet, but momentously, after 21 years of carrying the burden of self-doubt, his first symphony was premiered. It was the ultimate accolade in Brahms's eyes that his symphony was referred to as Beethoven's 10th.